All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Imagine trying to land a Cessna on a dirt runway that looks absolutely no bigger than a postage stamp. It's intense, right? Well, today we are putting you directly in the left seat. We're going to break down exactly what it takes to bring an aircraft down safely when all your normal margins for error are just completely stripped away. Whether you're dealing with a super short runway or a massive obstacle right in your approach path, we're going to cover the exact techniques you need to nail this. Here is our flight plan for today. We'll start with the short field challenge, then look at flying the approach, move on to clearing the obstacles, and wrap it all up with touchdown and rollout. Section 1, the short field challenge. Let's set the scene for this highly demanding maneuver. So think about your typical landing at a nice, long municipal airport. You've got a standard, comfortable glide path and a normal approach speed. But a short field landing, yeah, it throws those rules completely out the window. Why? Because you might only have a mere 1,000 feet of usable runway, or maybe there's a towering tree line sitting right in your way. So you have to swap that standard descent for a steep, power-assisted approach flown at a much, much lower speed. You're maximizing your descent angle while keeping that aircraft right on the absolute edge of its performance envelope. The ultimate goal here is to touch down without floating down the runway the absolute instant that throttle is closed. Now, in a normal landing, a little bit of float during the flare is totally fine, even expected for a buttery smooth touchdown. But when you only have 1,000 feet to work with, every single foot you spend floating in the air is a foot you literally cannot use for braking. And believe me, you are gonna need those brakes. You have to be firmly planted on the ground the second you pull that power. Section 2, flying the approach. Let's look at how we perfectly configure for this descent. Okay, for a smooth air setup, you are configuring for maximum drag. You want to set those flaps fully to 30 degrees, assuming there aren't any crazy gusts, of course. This full flap setting is absolutely crucial. It ensures a lower approach speed and acts kind of like deploying a parachute out the back of the plane to actively prevent float. You'll be targeting an approach speed of exactly 62 knots. Now, obviously, if it's bumpy and turbulent, you'll need to bump that speed up just a little bit. You are definitely walking a tightrope with your airspeed here. It has to be slower than normal, but there's a very strict hard deck. Your speed must never, ever drop below 1.3 times the actual stall speed of the aircraft. That 1.3 multiplier isn't just a friendly suggestion. It's a mandatory 30% safety buffer keeping you flying while you are low and slow. Now this brings us to the golden rule of flying this approach, and honestly, it feels totally counterintuitive at first. It's almost like using your steering wheel to brake and your gas pedal to turn. Here it is. You must use your throttle power to dictate your flight path, while your yoke attitude controls your airspeed. Meaning, if you're dropping below your glide path, don't pull back on the yoke, add power. If your speed is bleeding off, lower the nose. It's a constant, delicate dance of adjustments to maintain that perfect balance. And whenever possible, you want to land directly into the wind. Seriously, a strong headwind is your absolute best friend in a short field scenario. It naturally gives you a much steeper angle of descent over the ground to help clear obstacles, and it drastically shortens your landing run once your wheels actually touch the dirt. Section 3, clearing the obstacles. This takes some serious discipline when you're flying low and slow. Before we tackle the obstacles themselves, we need to get clear on two key terms: round out and float. The round out is that final transition from your steep descent into a level attitude just inches above the runway. The float is the glide that happens right after the round out, before the tires actually squeak onto the pavement. For a short field landing, managing that round out perfectly is exactly how you eliminate that dangerous float. So what happens if there are really tall obstacles right in your approach path? Well, you're forced to shift your aiming point further down the runway. I mean, you obviously can't aim for the very beginning of the runway if there's a 50-foot tree right in front of it. You have to push your aiming point further into the chosen field. It feels super unnatural to fly past perfectly good runway, but it's the only way to ensure you clear that boundary at a safe height while keeping your power on. Now, human nature is going to scream at you to just chop the power the second you clear that obstacle. Do not do it. At these incredibly low approach speeds, your aerodynamic controls are way less effective. If you cut the power too early, you lose that vital airflow over the elevator, which drastically reduces your round-out capability. The risk? You'll drop like a stone, developing a terrifyingly high sink rate and a very heavy, potentially damaging touchdown. Section 4, touchdown and rollout. You've cleared the obstacle. Now you have to stick the landing. Because you're flying a power-assisted approach at such a low speed, your nose is actually pointing noticeably higher than it would in a normal landing. Due to that high nose attitude and the heavy drag from the flaps, you have to commence your round out much closer to the ground than you usually would. Start rounding out at your normal, higher altitude with that high nose, you'll just bleed off your remaining speed and drop right out of the sky. Things happen incredibly fast in the flare. If you notice a high sink rate developing during this delicate round-out phase, you must quickly add power. The source material actually stresses leaving a bit of power on as you start the round out if your speed feels low. But if you start dropping too fast, bam, add power immediately. You might even need to keep that power in all the way down to the dirt to keep from slamming into the runway. Once you have safely cleared all the obstacles, you're going to progressively reduce your power and subtly lower the nose to maintain that target speed. When it's finally time to meet the ground, ensure that touchdown happens completely power off and strictly on the main wheels first. Do not prolong the hold off trying to grease it on perfectly. We just want to get the aircraft securely on the ground. The second those main wheels touch, the clock is ticking on whatever runway you have left. To get maximum braking, you have to execute this rapid-fire sequence. 1. Ensure the throttle is fully closed. 2. The main wheels touch down. 3. Instantly retract the flaps. This kills the residual lift and dumps the weight of the aircraft onto the tires. 4. Pull the yoke full back for aerodynamic braking. And 5. Apply maximum brake pressure without letting those tires slide. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Mastering that precise, totally counterintuitive balance between engine power and aircraft attitude is the true key to aviation safety in these extreme environments. It takes incredible discipline, flawless energy management, and a really cool head. When you look down and see the runway rapidly running out through your windshield, will you trust your mastery of pitch and power enough to safely stick the landing? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep mastering the skies.